Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the singing of the Star-Spangled Banner. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you to the representatives from the Delaware Valley Veterans Home for your impressive color guard. Thank you, Delana, Maple Point's choir, conducted by Ms. Amy O'Neill, Maple Point students, Neshaminy School District staff, Superintendent Hancock, Principal Sokol, Representative Frank Ferry, Senator Tomlinson's assistant, Dave Gibbons, special veteran guests from the Fondy family, members of Warrior Watch, proud family members, and America's veterans. We welcome you to Maple Point's 13th annual Veterans Day celebration. My name is Ann Schmidt, and I'm an 8th grade teacher at Maple Point. We gathered today to celebrate the 77th anniversary or year of this national holiday. Our United States celebrations began November 11th, 1918 at 11 a.m. That's when World War I ended, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. In 1919, in recognition of that historic moment, President Woodrow Wilson proclaimed November 11th Armistice Day to remember the sacrifices and to ensure freedom during World War I. Congress passed a resolution in 1926 for an annual observance, November 11th, and it became a national holiday beginning in 1938. In 1954, Congress and President Eisenhower renamed Armistice Day, calling it Veterans Day. Today, we're here to do as President Eisenhower requested, to recognize all veterans who have honorably worn the uniform of our great and free nation. Ladies and gentlemen, I proudly introduce to you Maple Point's and our country's veterans. These 96 brave veterans seated on our stage are patriots. They sacrificed themselves in defense of freedom. They are everyday people like my dad and my cousins seated here on the stage. They've each performed their duties with little recognition, fortune, or fame. They're from different towns, states, different branches of the military, yet they all belong to the same club and share the same belief: freedom is precious. Our veterans served in different ranks. We have privates, lance corporals, petty officers, master sergeants, captains, just to name a few. They had different jobs, like air controller, radar and sonar technician on submarines, supply clerks, firefighters, sharpshooters, post office coordinators, weapons trainers, rocket operators, nuclear weapons security officers, and helicopter pilots. They served during different eras also, some during peacetime, others during World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Libya, the Gulf War, Kuwait, Afghanistan, and in Iraq. They also earned many awards. 5 of our veterans were wounded during their military service, and they are recipients of the Purple Heart Award. This award was originally established by General George Washington shortly after the Revolutionary War. One of our veterans received 2 Purple Hearts during his service. 7 of the men and women seated before you were awarded Bronze Stars for distinguishing themselves with extreme heroic behavior, their achievement. 20 distinguished themselves by outstanding meritorious achievement or service to the United States. Many of them were awarded Good Conduct Medals for exemplary behavior. The veterans seated on this stage are among 22 million living veterans we have in the United States who have taken an oath to protect and defend our freedom. They believe, as did the veterans of the American Revolution, that Americans have certain unalienable rights, rights that cannot and shall not be taken away. They also believe in us, the ones to follow, their posterity. Veterans, we have the greatest respect and admiration for you, and we, the teachers of Maple Point's 8th graders, we can assure you that the students that are seated before you here understand the value of freedom, and they understand the role that you played in securing it. Students, let us thank these great heroes not only today but every day by honoring them, by working to secure blessings of freedom that they hold so dear. I would like now to introduce to you Principal Sokol of Maple Point Middle School, Principal Sokol, and Warrior Watch representatives, Mrs. Daniel Fielkowski-Newber.
Thank you. First, I'd like to welcome the Warrior Watch program. They have a presentation to make.
Thank you, Principal Sokol. Staff, students, and honored guests, and most importantly, our veterans. First and foremost, I would like to thank you all for your service and welcome home. The American Warriors Watch Coalition is an umbrella organization that brings together like-minded organizations that supports troops and veterans. We all have a common goal. We all support our servicemen and women and our veterans. Today, all the veterans received a star in their bag. This star is from the Major Adam Stewart Wolfer Institute in memory of Major Stewart Wolfer, who was killed in action in Afghanistan. The star reads, "I am part of our American flag. I have flown over a home in the USA, but I can no longer fly. The sun and the wind have caused me to become tattered and torn. Please carry me with you as a reminder that you are not forgotten." On behalf of the American Warriors Watch Coalition, I'd like to present Maple Point Middle School with the Catherine Fielkowski Memorial Award for patriotism and for the support of our veterans and our troops.
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to welcome everyone to Maple Point, especially our honored guests, our veterans, their families, and our students. Thank you all for coming out today to honor our veterans. I'm the son of a vet, and he couldn't be here today, but I thank him and all the veterans for their dedication, sacrifice, and service. As we look at today's gatherings as recognition of the service above self to uphold our country's security and its people's freedoms, may we reflect as we hear, understand, and appreciate the commitment and sacrifices made for all of us, for us to enjoy the many freedoms that we often take for granted. Former President Ronald Reagan stated, "Veterans Day gives all Americans a special opportunity to pay tribute to those men and women who throughout our history have left their homes and loved ones to serve their country." Their willingness to give freely and unselfishly of themselves and even their lives in defense of our democratic principles has given our great country the security we enjoy today. Through war and peace, valiant, patriotic Americans have answered their call, serving with honor and fidelity. Our hope today is that we learn from the examples and the stories that will be told to you from these valiant individuals and their commitment to our country. Maple Point 8th graders, your challenge is how can you on a daily basis learn to help and serve a greater cause bigger than yourself? Lastly, I'd be amiss if I did not thank all of our teachers, staff, and students who have worked effortlessly to put this program together. Your efforts are greatly appreciated. At this time, I would like to introduce Dr. Gloria Hancock, our acting superintendent.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Sokol. I would like to start by welcoming each of our guests this morning. Representative Frank Farry, Dave Gibbon from Senator Tomlinson's office, the members of the Warriors Watch, the wonderful Honor Guard from the Delaware Valley Veterans Home, and most importantly, the veterans seated here on the stage next to us. On behalf of the entire Neshaminy School District community, we are honored by your presence, and we thank you for joining us today. I also want to recognize Mr. Sokol for his leadership and the hard work of Mrs. Schmidt and the entire staff here at Maple Point. As you can imagine, putting a ceremony together of this magnitude is no small task. But keep in mind that this is just one part of a larger effort to teach our students throughout the year a deep appreciation of service and the sacrifices made by members of our military, both present and past. This room may look like an auditorium, but make no mistake, for today it is a classroom. These veterans are your teachers today. Maple Point 8th graders, what you see in front of you are not only some of the finest members of our community, but also the collective history of our nation spanning several generations of service. They have been to and fought in the places in history that you've only read about in your social studies books or even seen in your videos or movies. These veterans are not just a part of history, they have in fact made history. If you get a chance, please be sure to say hello to our guests after this ceremony. If you know a veteran or an active member of the military, ask them about their service. I am sure that they will have some great stories to share with you, and you will learn a lot about our world and appreciate the privileges that we all have as Americans in a very new way. And to the veterans with us here today, I would simply like to say thank you for your service. I too am very proud to come from a military family. My stepfather, my father-in-law, my uncles, my cousins, my niece, and my son have served in all branches of the military, ranging from the Army, the Air Force, the Marine Corps, and the Navy. They inspire me, and you inspire me. What I see up here on the stage today is human representation of some of the core values that we want to instill in our children and for them to carry on through generations. Those core values are service over self, strength, honor, integrity, courage, and most of all, responsibility. There is not a single day that passes where we don't enjoy some freedom, some right, some privilege afforded to us through the service and the sacrifice of our veterans. This is a lesson that I hope we can all take home with us today. Thank you again for being here, veterans, and God bless all of you. Thank you.
We'd now like to welcome Marine Corps veteran Dave Gibbon, who's here on behalf of Senator Tommy Tomlinson.
Good afternoon. My name's Dave Gibbon. I work for Senator Tomlinson, who unfortunately could not be here today, but it is my honor and privilege to be here to pay tribute and respect to some of Pennsylvania's own heroes and America's heroes. The senator told me to talk about one thing in particular today, and that the preservation of our republic is a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week job. And there are those of us that take an oath to protect and serve it. But even those that don't do it have a duty and a responsibility to stay involved in their community and in their schools, in whatever level of government. Please pay attention, stay involved, and just make sure you say thank you to these veterans that have made sacrifices so that we are all able to live in America the way it is today. Thank you.
Now I'd like to welcome Representative Frank Ferry.
Thank you, Mrs. Schmidt. And first of all, I'd like to thank you and the faculty and students and volunteers that made today possible. This is a great event, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. And of course, to our veterans, whatever your service has been, whether it was in peacetime or during war, during the conflicts we face now, or going back to some of our friends in the front row that served us in World War II, we owe you the deepest gratitude, and thank you for your service. One thing I'd like to impart, and that is to the students here. This weekend, I'm going to issue a challenge now for this weekend. This weekend, if you can just take 5 minutes, go to your bedroom, sit alone, no Facebook, no cell phones, no video games, and I'd just like you to reflect for 5 minutes and think about the community we live in. Think about the service in that community, ranging from, if you're involved in youth athletics, the people that volunteer to be your coaches and run those little leagues, or the people that volunteer in your church so you can worship freely. Think about your community being safe because of your volunteer firefighters and EMS and the sacrifices those folks make so you're able to live the lives you do in the community. And then the final part I would like you to think about is think about the sacrifices the men and women on this stage and those that came before them, as well as those that are currently serving us today. Think about the sacrifices they're making. There's no doubt in my mind right now as we stand here in Maple Point's auditorium that men and women are in harm's way. They're away from their family and friends to serve our country and protect our interests. So please just take a few moments and think about that, reflect on that, and as you grow into adulthood, please figure out a way to give back, whether you yourself end up in military service or you give back to your community. So do you think you can honor that challenge for me? Yes? Can we get a yes? Yes. All right. Well, I look forward to being before you again or running into you at the supermarket or local 7-Eleven, and I'd love to hear what your reflection brought to you, because this is all about learning. We're in a school. It's about growth experience, and I would really like you just to take that opportunity, because America is what it is today because of the sacrifices our men and women have given to both our community and, most importantly, our country. So, gentlemen, ladies, God bless you, and thank you for your service.
Kenzie Reed, Mason Calderbank, Caitlin Cherkis, and I would now like to honor each veteran seated on our stage. As we read each name in alphabetical order, we ask each veteran, if you are able, to stand for a moment to be recognized. Please hold your applause until all the veterans have been honored.
Teresa Abramowitz, Navy HM2E5. Joseph Barrios, Army Navy Specialist First Class E7. Fred Billett, Army E5. William Bowers, Navy Marine Corps E5. Herbert Brooks, Royal Air Force Aircraftsman First Class. Gus Kales, Marines. Robert J. Campbell, Sr., Navy Chief Petty Officer. John Carpanetta, Army Specialist Fourth Class. Mike Chalifo, Army E4. Chris Chantry, Marine Corps Sergeant. George Davis, Navy, E5. Jacob Day, Marine Corps, E4. Paul Day, Marine Corps, E4. Frederick D. DeJosie, Air Force Staff Sergeant. Thomas J. Devlin, Army, Lieutenant Colonel. John Dot, Navy. Robert A. Dot, Army. Robert R. Dot, Navy. Francis Drummond, Marine Corps Corporal. Fred Eckert, Army, E4. David Exner, Air Force, First Class. Anthony Filkowski, Marine Corps Sergeant. Robert Farley, Marine Corps Sergeant.
Kurt Festa, Army Specialist, 4th Class. Joseph Fondy, Army Specialist, E5. Joseph J. Fondy, Marine Corps Sergeant. Christina Thomas, Army Captain. Wesley Fuller, Navy. James Gallagher, Army Specialist. Jerry Galloway, Army Specialist, 4th Class. George Goodman, Army Specialist, 3rd Class. Stanley Gravera, Air Force A-1C. John R. Hastings, Navy Petty Officer, 2nd Class. Thomas Hauserman, Navy E5. Terry Higgins, Air Force Staff Sergeant. William D. Houston Sr., Army E5. Vincent Jordan, Marine Corps Corporal. Frank Kaufman, Army Sergeant. Lamount Kelly, Army Specialist, 5th Class. William A. Kelly, Army Private. James Kennedy, Air Force Master Sergeant. Carolyn Ketterhagen, Air Force Private. Robert Kowaleski, Army E5.
Stephen Cross, Army Corporal. Michael Kulik, Army Specialist, 4th Class. George Lawver, Army Corporal. Carl Marglet, Army Private, 1st Class. Walter Martin, Army CWO2. Robert McCartney, Army E4. Edgar McCutcheon, Navy Chief Petty Officer. Roy J. Mayer, Navy. Edward Minickbach, Army E4. Barney Mullen, Army Corporal. Frank Muller, Army Sergeant. Barry O'Malley, Marine Corps Corporal. Bob Oysterhout, Army. Jack Pashley, Army SP5, E5. Les Penny, Marine Corps. Clem Piscatelli, Army Master Sergeant. Al Polak, Army. William Russell, Army Sergeant. John J. Salmon, Army E6. Robert Schaefer, Army, Sergeant E5. Gerald R. Schmidt, Army, 4th class. Craig Schneider, Air Force Captain. Thomas Scortino, Army, 1st Lieutenant.
Paul Shanahan, Navy, E4. Terry Shirk, Navy, E4. Robert Smith, Army, SP4. Eddie Speller, Air Force, A3C. John Stange, Navy, Petty Officer E5, 2nd class. Raymond Straley, Marine Corps, E4. Ray Sweeney, Navy, SK3. George Sweet, Army, E4. Ed Torres, Army. Herbert Tuttle, Army, Lieutenant Colonel. Eugene Varel, Army and Air Force, Tech Sergeant. James R. Walker III, Navy, Petty Officer, 2nd class. Mike Warner, Army, CW04. Bill Welsh, Army, E4. Sylvan Winokur, Marine Corps, Corporal. Theodore Wolthorn, Army, Private, 1st class. Joseph Yergowski, Army, Specialist, 5th class. Leonard Tharney, Army, Colonel. Robert Lederer, Navy, Fireman. Bill Sheaf, Army, Corporal, SP3. Charles McAinley, Army, Spec 2. John Salmon Sr., Army, Spec 4. Larry Matosky, Air Force, Airman 2nd. Jerry Polanski, Army, Sergeant, Korean War. Thomas Locke, Marine Corps, Corporal. William McGoldrick, Navy, Master Chief. Amito Peluso, Navy, ATM Electronics. George Jenka, Navy, 3rd class Petty Officer. Wayne Lutz, Army, Sergeant. Lee Cannon, Army, Sergeant, Vietnam. Paul Day Sr., Navy, Seaman, 1st class. Morris Bratt, Army. Gus Kales, Marines.
invite you to enjoy a musical tribute to the armed forces.
Good afternoon. My name is Carol Foley. I'm an 8th grade teacher here at Maple Point Middle School. So often, service in the military fosters a spirit of camaraderie and support that mirrors that of a family. As we've heard today, military service often runs in the family. It is my honor today to introduce our guest speakers for today's celebration. The Fondy family has their roots in our Neshaminy community and has been in attendance with us throughout the last 13 years. Father, daughter, and son have served a combined 15 years for our country, and today they'll share with us their family message. Please join me in welcoming Joseph Fondy Sr., Christina Thomas, and Joseph Fondy Jr.
Hello, my name is Joseph Fondy Jr. My dad will be up in a couple minutes. I graduated from Neshaminy in 2000. I went to Neshaminy Middle School, which is now a rehab center at St. Mary's Hospital. Some of the teachers here, Mrs. Curley, she was Miss Pellegrino when I had her. Mrs. Schenkel, who I still believe is here, we have an exceptional relationship, me and Mrs. Schenkel, so just, if you have any questions about that, just ask her. Miss T in the back, she taught me how to sing when I was the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz in 9th grade. So, as Miss Foley said, I grew up here. I was one of you. I was probably that kid right there with the Marine Corps sweatshirt on, but I was one of you. One day, some of you will be us. You will be up on this stage, and you will be here talking to people that you knew as teachers. I want to tell a story. When I was in the Marine Corps in 2001, I was promoted to Lance Corporal, and I had the opportunity to have my own promotion, which doesn't really happen for the junior ranks. But during that promotion, after I was promoted to Lance Corporal, everybody came up and congratulated me, and this older gentleman came up, probably a little shorter than me, and he came up and he had a little blue and white rosette pin on his tie, and I didn't think anything of it at the time. And he walked up to me and he said, "Hi, my name's Mitch. I want to shake the hand of the newest Lance Corporal in the United States Marine Corps." And I said, "Thank you, Mitch. Thank you very much." And with that, he was gone. He walked away and he was gone. Another time, I was golfing with a friend of mine. Now, for the people who do know me, I have a weird sense of humor, and I apologize if this offends anybody right now, but I went golfing, and there was this older gentleman who golfed with us, me and my friend, and he had no legs, and all he introduced himself was Ray. That's all he said. Well, we continued to see him throughout the summer golfing, and we just always referred to him to ourselves as No-Legged Ray. Well, we never knew who he was or anything like that. Now, as some of the people have already said, veterans are all around you. You just don't know it. There's a good run of commercials from Walmart going on these days about Green Light a Vet, and they explain it perfectly in that commercial. You'll see a teacher, Mr. Schneider, Craig Schneider. He was one of my gym teachers when I was at Neshaminy for a short period of time. Coaches, neighbors, teachers, parents, relatives, they're all over. And for the most part, we're invisible. I myself, I bought this shirt last week to wear today. I don't normally wear Marine Corps stuff. I have a license plate on my car, and that's roughly about it. You would never know that most of us were veterans, okay? Might see a little haircut here and there if you're familiar with it. My hair is usually like this until I need a haircut, then I cut it way shorter than this. But as I said, you will never know that the people standing behind you at Walmart, at the movie theater, wherever, are veterans. And they were once in the same position you're in, listening to veterans. Now, with that being said, No-Legged Ray, I went to a Marine Corps birthday ball about a year after I met Ray. Turns out Ray had been in the Marine Corps for 47 years. He served in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. He had 6 Purple Hearts, 3 Silver Stars, 4 Bronze Stars, a Legion of Merit. He had everything you could possibly have. And when he introduced himself as Ray. And by the way, he beat me by 14 strokes the first time we went golfing. The last thing I want to read is, this is a Medal of Honor citation. The President of the United States takes pride in presenting the Medal of Honor to Platoon Sergeant Mitchell Page, United States Marine Corps, for service as set forth in the following citation. For extraordinary heroism and conspicuous gallantry in action above and beyond the call of duty while serving with the 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines, 1st Marine, in combat against enemy Japanese forces in the Solomon Islands area on October 26, 1942. When the enemy broke through the line directly in front of his position, Platoon Sergeant Mitchell Page, commanding a machine gun section with fearless determination, continued to direct the fire of his gunners until all his men were either killed or wounded. Alone against the deadly hail of Japanese shells, he manned his gun, and when it was destroyed, took over another, moving from one gun to another, never ceasing his withering fire against the advancing hordes until reinforcements finally arrived. Then, forming a new line, he dauntlessly and aggressively led a bayonet charge, driving the enemy back and preventing a breakthrough in our lines. His great personal valor and unyielding devotion to duty were in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. That was important enough for then President Franklin Delano Roosevelt to give this guy the Medal of Honor. When I met him, roughly 56 years to the day after this, all he did was introduce himself as Mitch. He never mentioned any of this. Sad to say, he passed away 2 years after that in 2002 from congestive heart failure. But at the time he came up and introduced himself to me as Mitch, that was it, just Mitch, I was standing in Mitchell Page Hall getting promoted to Lance Corporal. He came up, shook my hand, and that was it. And that little blue rosette pin that I talked about on his tie, that was what he was awarded along with the Medal of Honor. So like I said, any one of these people up here, back here, anywhere, you guys too in the future, one day you will be in the same situation as us. And hopefully that person will come up and just say, hi, my name's Mitch, and not flaunt what they did, because none of us did it to flaunt it. We did it for you, we did it for our families, and we did it for future generations. So thank you very much. I'd now like to introduce my sister, Tina.
I'd like to thank the Maple Point faculty and students for hosting this ceremony. When I was asked to speak, I was honored, but I definitely did not want to bore you guys. So out here in the audience, raise your hand if you're involved in something other than school, sports, music, video games. Come on. That's pretty much the majority of you out there. And it's pretty amazing because school takes up a lot of our time. I wanted to relate my story today to how school, learning, and staying involved brought me to where I am today. I didn't sign up for the Army out of high school. After graduating from Neshaminy, I went to the University of Scranton, where I majored in accounting, minored in leadership, played soccer, and joined Army ROTC. My parents weren't as excited as me, their only daughter wanting to join the Army. It sounded fun. I'd get to rappel, jump out of airplanes, and see the world. The fun turned into being in charge of 72 soldiers, living in Germany, and deploying to a war zone for a year. However, I still always had the love and support of my parents, and they made me the person I am today. Airborne school was my first real Army experience. The first day, the Sergeant Airborne picked me to fail. I proved them wrong, and thanks to Mrs. Curley, those 110-yard dashes during the Neshaminy field hockey practice, whew, that really paid off. I graduated airborne school and learned that if someone wants to push you down, you can always get back up. That definitely builds your confidence. After Scranton, I was commissioned a second lieutenant in the Army Ordnance Corps. The Ordnance Corps is one of the Army's logistical branches. We like to say logistics is like having everything you need in working order at all times for your camping trip. For ordnance, that included weapon systems, vehicles, and equipment. I was stationed in Hanau, Germany, and immediately got involved. I learned to be a leader from my company commander, learned how to train soldiers from my platoon sergeant, and I learned how to run a supply support activity from my warrant officer. They were my teachers, the subject matter experts that helped me grow. My time in Germany was great. Aside from being a soldier 24/7, I stayed involved. I played on a German women's soccer team, traveled to various countries, visited family, and had family visit me. After the September 11th attacks, I soon deployed to Kuwait. My brother didn't mention this, but we met up in Kuwait, and when we were outside, I made him salute me. I have that picture with me if you want to see it. I soon deployed to Iraq and was there for a year. This was challenging because you're living in a makeshift home and sharing it with comrades. I worked nights and had to sleep in the hot day. But we made do. We learned to adjust to our environment. In addition to my logistics duties, we were there to win the hearts and minds of the local people. We rebuilt schools and water purification systems to assist in the restructuring of villages. To see the smiles on the young kids' faces because they were able to go back to school will always be with me. I met a girl my age, and she had so much energy. She just wanted to come to America to receive an education. That made me feel grateful that we have the choice to do what some don't have the choice to do. I made the choice to move on from the Army to the corporate world. I now work for Lockheed Martin in logistics. I'm proud to still be involved with the defense industry. We have the choice to get involved and to decide on our future. Others don't have that choice, but we have the freedom to choose. I like to end on this. My kids, who are 4 and 2, love the Toby Keith video, American Soldier. My son, who's 2, points out to the young boy's daddy getting on the airplane and asks me if I did that. It makes me proud that my kids recognize the sacrifice. My daughter, who is 4, saw a soldier in uniform not too long ago at a local restaurant. She saluted him, and in her shy little voice, she said, "Thank you for your service." That made me proud, and that soldier proud too. Veterans, like my brother said, may not always be noticed and may not always be recognized, especially if we're not in uniform or not sitting on a stage here. But you all recognize us every year. And on behalf of all the veterans up here today, I thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today to honor our veterans. When I was in school, I could sleep with my eyes wide open. And I see a lot of students here that seem to have mastered that. I joined the Army Reserves 1 year after I graduated from Neshaminy. And at the time, it was the tail end of the Vietnam War. And 6 years later, when I was discharged, it was peacetime. So my involvement with the military was truly uneventful. And about 4 or 5 years after I was discharged, I realized how much I liked it and that I wanted to be back in. So I went to my unit and I said, I'd like to join again. And they said, well, you know, Joe, we have criteria now. You're going to have to take the physical again. I says, hey, I don't have a problem with that. Let's do it. So a short time later, the people, the powers that be, they came back to me and said, Joe, you haven't met the criteria. You didn't pass the physical. I says, well, really, what's the problem? And they said, you're a bit overweight. I said, overweight? God, I'm only 168 pounds. Well, gee whiz, wouldn't I like to have that problem today? So I still wanted to do something. I wanted to help people. And I was reading this article about the space shuttle. And they were interviewing a woman who was really interesting. And she said a few words that truly had an impact on me. And I thought to myself, that might not be military, but I can do that. I can help people. I can teach them what I know. And I think I just heard somebody behind me say, well, that can't be too much. Well, gee, thanks for the love. I feel it. But I was thinking, I'm a handy guy. I can fix things around the house. I can do electrical work. I can do plumbing. I can fix a leaky roof. You call me. I will help you do that. I will teach you, and you will learn. And that gave me great satisfaction. And then in later years in life, I learned that 2 of my children were going to join the military. And I wasn't really comfortable with that, but I was proud. My dad was in the military. 2 uncles were in the military. My brother was in the Marine Corps. I thought this would be a nice tradition. They would all be proud. It was peacetime. I felt comfortable. But then 9/11 occurred, and now I didn't feel comfortable. And within a few weeks, they were both in Kuwait. And through social media, I learned that they were going to meet each other. And as Tina said earlier, which I'm going to reiterate, this gave me great pleasure because I knew that Joe, who was a corporal in the Marine Corps, and Tina, who was a lieutenant in the Army, when they met up, he was going to have to salute her in front of his peers. This gave me immense pleasure. And I have proof. So now that my children are in the military, I really want to do something. I feel compelled that I have to help. So now I want to join. But I can't join. I'm too old. And I'm probably still overweight. So what we start to do is put together care packages, suites, toiletries, reading material, anything that's going to make the troops feel better. We're going to ship them off. And as I start putting these packages together, I start to realize one of these days my kids are going to be veterans. I have to do more for the vets. So what I did was I joined the American Legion. I joined the Elks. I joined the VFW. All these are organizations that do for the veterans. Recently, I was a participant in Honor Flight Philadelphia, where each one of us are assigned a veteran to take care of for the day, to be his guardian. So there was 200 guardians, 200 veterans on 8 motor coaches with a police escort to Washington, D.C., for the veterans to be able to visit all of the memorials dedicated to them for America's past conflicts. And each week, I volunteer at the Washington Crossing National Cemetery, where with the Honor Guard, we pay tribute to our departed veterans by rendering a final Army salute with a 21-gun volley. This is a terrific thing. I feel great when I do this. And the woman who so long ago inspired me with a few words was a teacher at a high school in New Hampshire. And her name, Krista Corrigan McCullough. And those few words that she spoke were, I touch the future, I teach. So I say to you, the class of 2020, Please join me in a big round of applause for your teachers and yourselves. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Kevin Hastings, social studies teacher here at Maple Point, and I'm honored today that for the first time my father, John Hastings, a Navy vet, is with us as well. I want to share a story. Our Veterans Day ceremony is not only a chance for us to thank all of you, our guests, for your service to our country, it's also an opportunity to learn from your experience. You have so many stories to tell, so many lessons to teach. One of those stories came to light last year when two of our guests happened to strike up a conversation right out in the lobby. The story goes like this. During World War II, many American soldiers were stationed in England. In the small town of Leek, North Staffordshire, a young 10-year-old boy was given a gift from an American serviceman. The American private, Fred Ramsey, APO 79, tossed his Bible over the fence to the boy. The boy, Herbert Brooks, was very touched by this act of kindness and kept that Bible with him. Brooks later served in the Royal Air Force, still keeping the Bible with him. And when Brooks eventually moved to the United States, the Bible came with him as well. Last year, 70 years after receiving that gift, Herbert Brooks came to Maple Point Middle School to attend this Veterans Day ceremony. He noticed the very familiar brown uniform being worn by one of the other attendees. This uniform was the same as Fred Ramsey's, the private who tossed him the Bible. Herbert Brooks introduced himself to retired Sergeant Albert Giandomenico and started sharing stories about England during the war. When Brooks showed Giandomenico his Bible, Giandomenico immediately recognized the inscription as that of a member of his outfit. This was an amazing coincidence, that these two men, after 70 years, would meet at our ceremony in the small town in Pennsylvania, more than 3,000 miles from North Staffordshire, was simply remarkable. We are so happy to have been part of this reunion. I ask that Herbert Brooks, who is here again today, would please stand and be recognized. We should all be inspired by Private Ramsey's act of kindness, and so grateful that you shared your story with us. Thank you, all of you, for your service.
It is now my pleasure to present you with three Maple Point 8th graders, Jenna Mueller, Jordan Turner, Kezia Joseph, who will share their thoughts and feelings about freedom and veteran heroes.
Freedom isn't free. I watched the flag pass by one day. It fluttered in the breeze. A young Marine saluted it, and then he stood at ease. I looked at him in uniform, so young, so tall, so proud. With hair cut square and eyes alert, he'd stand out in any crowd. I thought how many men like him had fallen through the years, how many died on foreign soil, how many mothers' tears, how many pilots' planes shot down, how many died at sea, how many foxholes were soldiers' graves. No, freedom isn't free. I heard the sound of taps one night when everything was still. I listened to the bugler play and felt a sudden chill. I wondered just how many times that taps had meant amen, when a flag had draped the coffin of a brother or a friend. I thought of all the children, of the mothers and the wives, of fathers, sons, and husbands with interrupted lives. I thought about a graveyard at the bottom of the sea, of unmarked graves in Arlington. No, freedom isn't free.
In Flanders Fields by Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae. In Flanders Fields the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved. And now we live in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high, or we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields.
What freedom means to me. Freedom is something that is uniquely defined for every individual. To me, freedom is having the right or ability to make your own choices or express your own opinions without fear. Abraham Lincoln once said, "Freedom is not the right to do what we want, but what we ought." Although freedom is about choice, it also requires a moral code so that we don't abuse it. Freedom is a pillar of America's foundation. Without freedom, what reason would George Washington and the rest of the founding fathers have to fight against the powerful British? Why would Harriet Tubman risk her own life and liberty so many times to bring as many slaves as she could out of the South? Why would the Pilgrims risk venturing into the unknown on the Mayflower? All of those just mentioned have something in common. They all took risks to gain freedom for themselves and their people. Freedom is what gives us the right to voice our opinions, which is a part of what gave us equal rights. It gives us the right to fight for what we believe in, to believe in what we think is right, and the right to vote for who we want to vote for. Freedom is what made the heroes of the past fight so hard. Even today, our soldiers fight bravely to protect and preserve our freedom and bring it to others. As Americans, we proudly carry the stars and stripes over us, which has become a symbol of the country that fought so hard for the legacy of freedom that lives on today. With freedom comes responsibility, for it has a great price. American soldiers lay down their lives to protect our country. Soldiers devote themselves to serving the United States no matter what the cost. They continue to fight for America's greatest gift, the freedom of our people. With each passing day, with each sacrifice made, the value of that freedom goes up, and yet many still take it for granted. Freedom without responsibility is when people all around justify harsh actions with excuses like freedom of speech. Freedom of speech means we are allowed to voice our own opinions. It does not mean we can force them onto others. So let's not abuse freedom. Let's honor the sacrifices made and take freedom seriously. In my opinion, freedom is a gift more valuable than gold. Thank you.
Please stand for a moment of silence to remember all past veterans and the playing of taps. Please be seated.
In conclusion, we would like to thank our student participants for their outstanding contributions today, the Maple Point PTO, Neshaminy's support staff members, and the Maple Point faculty who have shown great dedication to and support for this Veterans Day celebration. We thank all of the American Legion posts. We are most grateful to the Jesse W. Suby Post number 148 for their annual donation of our poppies, and we thank the Rotary Club of Langhorne for their support. But most of all, we would like to thank our veterans for sharing this very special day, their day, with us. If you haven't received it yet, we request that you would pick up and be presented with a token of our appreciation. Our name is on it along with yours, Celebrating America's Veterans. Inside the bag are specific memorabilia from today, a key ring, some lovely letters, and certificates. We invite you to return to Maple Point every year to share in our celebration. We know that you'll make good use of the bags. We are most proud also for the letters in the bags from our first grade teachers and their children, Miss Beth Boyle, Miss Mary Beth Curriger, Miss Kylie McCafferty, and Miss Leanne Rabs, students from Pearlbuck Elementary School, whose message of thanks and love reflects our heartfelt sentiment. And students, as so many people have challenged you today, we can continue to honor our guests by our daily actions, by aspiring to reach our veterans' level of commitment, service, and loyalty, be it to our school, to our families, and to our community and country. Thank you.
We would like to extend an invitation to all veterans, family members, and invited guests to join the 8th grade students outside for an annual Veterans Student Flag Parade.